Regency Trinidad. I am Stacy from the Hyatt Security Department. The following is a brief description of the hotel's evacuation guidelines. Should it become necessary to evacuate the hotel, you'll be notified by a continuous siren, followed by audible instruction to evacuate the building. Upon hearing the "May I have your attention please" recording over the intercom, you should proceed orderly to the exit closest to you and make your way to the muster point at the car park, which is located on Dock Road. An emergency response officer from Hyatt will assist you in evacuating. Once outside, conduct a head count for your group to be sure that no one is left inside. Should you believe someone is missing, notify the security officer stationed in your area. Do not go back into the building for any reason until the fire service has given the all clear. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and do enjoy your time with us.
Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Senator the Honorable Franklin Khan, President of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, and Minister of Energy and Energy Industries of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, members of the Cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, His Excellency Dr. Jury Centurion, Secretary General of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, ministers and heads of delegations of member states of the GECF, representatives of CARICOM, including CARICOM energy ministers, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Engineer Alfonso Bianco Bonilla, Executive Director of the Latin American Energy Organization, OLATE, Mr. Louis Bertrand Rafecas, Secretary General of the International Gas Union, the IGU, industry executives, delegates, members of the media, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to the Hyatt Regency Port of Spain Ballroom, and our thanks once again to the performance by the Massey Trinidad All-Star Steel Orchestra for delivering the national anthem on the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago. We begin our program this morning with an address and welcome by Senator the Honorable Franklin Khan, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and President of the Ministerial Meeting of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator the Honorable Franklin Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, members of Cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, His Excellency Dr. Yuri Centurion, Secretary General of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, the GECF, ministers and heads of delegation of member states of the GECF, representatives of CARICOM, including CARICOM energy ministers present. I know there are a couple of them here. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Engineer Alfonso Blanco Bonilla, the Executive Director of OLADE, Mr. Louis Bertrand Rafikas, Secretary General of the IGU, the International Gas Union, industry executives, delegates, members of the media, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It is my pleasure as host and current president of the GECF to bring welcome remarks to this gas symposium, which is being held on the sidelines of the 20th Ministerial Meeting of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, better known as the GECF. This is the second occasion that we in Trinidad and Tobago are privileged to host a GECF ministerial meeting, as the 5th ministerial meeting was held right here in Port of Spain, Trinidad, in April of 2005. I would like to welcome all first-time visitors to Trinidad and Tobago, and there are a lot of you. I hope you find some time from your packed schedule to see some more of our beautiful Twin Island Republic. It has now become customary to host energy and gas conferences alongside ministerial meetings of the GECF. Last year's 19th ministerial meeting in Moscow, Russia, coincided with Russia's Energy Week. And we were privileged to have been addressed by His Excellency Mr. Vladimir Putin, the President of the Russian Federation. Today, the same privilege is being offered to us, as the keynote address will be delivered by our own Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and our Head of Government, the Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, the petroleum industry of Trinidad and Tobago has had a long history, dating as far back as 110 years. During our time in the industry, we have forged many relationships and joined prestigious organizations such as the GECF. The GECF is an internationally recognized organization comprising of the world's leading natural gas producers and exporters. The GECF was formed to increase coordination and to strengthen collaboration among member countries with the aim of supporting the sovereign rights of the member countries over their natural gas resources. The GECF also seeks to promote dialogue between member countries. Currently, there are 12 member countries: Algeria, Bolivia, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea, Iran, Libya, Nigeria, Qatar, the Russian Federation, Trinidad and Tobago, the United Arab Emirates, and Venezuela, all of whom are represented here today. And I want to especially welcome all our delegates of the GECF members. There are also 7 observer countries: Azerbaijan, Iraq, Kazakhstan, Netherlands, Norway, Oman, and Peru. Ladies and gentlemen, GECF members control 70% of the world's natural gas reserves, 45% of natural gas production, 64% of pipeline gas export, and 54% of the LNG trade. This according to the GECF Secretariat as of 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this year's exposition, Energy Security and Natural Gas, is most appropriate and is aligned with the GECF long-term strategy and goals adopted by the 18th Ministerial Meeting in Doha, Qatar in November of 2016 and refined at the 2017 Executive Board meeting in Moscow, Russia. The challenge of sustainable development of the natural gas sector In this era of economic, political, climate, and social uncertainties, and the need for greater cooperation among member states has been recognized by all of us. The drive for greater cooperation and cohesion must be a priority, particularly when dealing with such a dynamic industry. Traditionally, the gas export industry has been based on pipeline gas. However, the advent of LNG has opened up the market and allowed for movement into areas traditionally that could not access natural gas. Over the last 2 decades, gas fundamentals have also changed significantly, as going into the LNG business at that time was not possible without long-term deals and fixed contracts. Today, however, LNG is traded on the spot market and marketed through short-term arrangements. This change has attracted more traders to the market, as LNG can now be traded like other commodities. We have seen more frequent LNG cargo diversions as traders try to take advantage of favorable arbitrage conditions. Traders now have a growing influence on the natural gas value chain to the extent that they are able to circumvent regular operating procedures that would have allowed for equitable profit sharing in the past. Trinidad and Tobago's gas development strategy has long echoed the objectives of developing projects that maximize the gas sector by deepening our participation further along the gas value chain. The government continues to see this as a main thrust in the creation and expansion of the small and medium-sized manufacturing enterprises and the development of niche sectors that employed highly skilled workers with increasing skill sets and competencies. Like most petroleum nations, the recent market volatility has affected us. Yet, we still see the sector playing a central role in the diversification of our local economy. Our CARICOM neighbors can attest to our role in regional energy integration, particularly in bridging the gap with our neighbors who are heavily dependent on imported energy products. The development of CARICOM's energy policy is testament to the region's willingness to collaborate to achieve greater policy cohesion for sustainable development. Today, there will be 2 panel discussions. Panel 1, which consists of esteemed ministers of the GECF countries, will discuss natural gas and long-term security. Our second panel consists of industry experts who will be looking at the role of natural gas in energy policies of Latin America and the Caribbean. I look forward to a healthy exchange of ideas that may be used to chart the way forward for the continued sustainable development of the sector and, by extension, our countries. May I take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, for accepting the invitation to be the keynote speaker of this symposium. His passion for the energy sector is well known to all of us, and we look forward to his presentation. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I close, I wish you a productive session, and once again, I welcome you all, especially the foreigners, to Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator the Honourable Franklin Can, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and President of the Ministerial Meeting of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum. For our audience in attendance this morning, the translation services that are available on Channel 2, Spanish, on Channel 3, French. His Excellency Dr. Yuri Centurion is the 3rd Secretary General of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum and was appointed at the 19th Ministerial Meeting in Moscow, Russia. He assumed this position on the 1st of January 2018. He is with us this morning to deliver opening remarks for this symposium. Will you please welcome His Excellency, Dr. Yuri Senturin.
Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Senator the Honorable Franklin Kahn, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, President of the GECF Ministerial Meeting, Honorable Ministers and Heads of Delegation of GECF member countries, Heads of international organizations, Members of Cabinet, Members of Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, Members of the Diplomatic Corps, representatives of CARICOM, industry captains, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am delightfully honored to welcome you all on behalf of the GECF Secretariat to this wonderful location and beautiful setting of the Hyatt Regency Trinidad. We have come from far and wide to be here and participate in a meaningful dialogue, not only about the gas sector itself, but the wider energy politics in the region. I would like to extend a very special welcome to our keynote participant and speaker, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for your hospitality and your valuable personal support of this event. The energy sector in the Caribbean and the Latin America as in most parts of the world, has gone through a serious transformation. Natural gas has been emerging as a key fuel of choice that ticks many boxes required to reach the sustainable development goals. Natural gas strikes the right balance between environmental credentials and economic feasibility, which has put the wheels in motion for an increase in global gas demand. The market has been witness to an incremental amount of countries in emerging as consumers, driven by the understanding of how important natural gas is to preserve national energy balances. For instance, by the mid-2020s, the number of LNG importers is expected to grow to around 50 countries. For GECF, this is a very promising prospect, considering our member states are sitting on 70% of the global proven gas reserves. Throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, the role of natural gas cannot be underestimated. And while certain reserves might decline, the global outlook is quite positive. I would like to take the opportunity to praise the efforts of our host country and the unique way it is monetizing its reserves. I would like to stress that GECF is especially proud to have Trinidad and Tobago as one of our founding member countries. As leading gas producer in the Caribbean, as well as one of the most prominent in South America, Trinidad and Tobago represents an exceptional role model for the other GECF member countries. The country is one of the oldest and most reliable hydrocarbon producers in the world, with a relevant industry that has been thriving for over 100 years. The first commercial oil production began in 1908, so I would like to congratulate our host country on the occasion of the 110th anniversary of oil production. Such kind of commemoration is always accompanied by music. The country possesses the unique musical instrument, I mean the one from the 55-gallon industrial drums. The steel pan is now synonymous with Caribbean culture. The very instrument traces its origins to the oil and gas industry. Thank you. Trinidad and Tobago is not only a recognized leader in LNG production, the fourth largest LNG exporter among all GECF member countries, but has also managed to gain a remarkable stronghold in ammonia, methanol, melamine, underscoring the country's adaptability and innovation in the hydrocarbon industry. pivotal role in CARICOM energy cohesion and integration, which proved to be a solid basis for further regional sustainable progress. Trinidad and Tobago's ongoing success will also be supported by alliances with other GECF member countries, as exemplified in the recent cooperative achievement with Venezuela as regards to the hibiscus and dragon gas fields. Collaboration is a key value of the forum, and I would like to take this opportunity to express my congratulations to these two GECF founding members on their accomplishments. The GECF is a global energy coalition whose member states, through shared experience and meaningful dialogue, are in a unique position to enhance the stability of natural gas markets. Our member states are contributing to the global LNG and pipeline gas trade by 54% and 64% respectively, exceeding the 45% of global gas production. GECF has recently upgraded its global gas outlook, which focuses on long-term market developments. One of the most promising prospects is our projection that natural gas will be the only fossil fuel to increase its share in the energy mix in the long run. On the other hand, obviously, GECF member countries face a number of challenges related to energy policies, technology shifts, market volatility, fundamental changes in contractual conditions, followed by growing role of traders, which could limit gas demand growth. These issues confirm the need for an organization as GECF and urges our member countries to deepen global strategic dialogue on issues related to energy security and the long-term stability of gas supplies. As I have mentioned on a few occasions, I do believe we should see these obstacles as a challenge that in the long term will benefit the role of natural gas has to play. So today we are having a wonderful opportunity to talk to each other in a constructive way and share ideas that can in turn be shared with other stakeholders to make the future of natural gas in this region a bright one. At conclusion, I would like repeatedly to thank Trinidad and Tobago government for hospitality, remarkable arrangements made so far, and to wish all of you a successive and productive work. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Dr. Yuri Centurion. Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted this morning to have the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago serve as the keynote speaker of our proceedings. It is my esteemed pleasure to introduce to you Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. The Honorable Franklin Khan, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, my cabinet colleagues and other members of Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, His Excellency Dr. Yuri Centurion, Secretary General of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, ministers and heads of delegation of members of the GECF, representatives of CARICOM, particularly our CARICOM Ministers of Energy, members of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Engineer Alfonso Blanco Bonilla, Executive Secretary of OLADE, Mr. Luis Bertrand Raficas, Secretary General of the International Gas Union, industry executives, delegates or members of the media, other specially invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you and welcome to Trinidad and Tobago. As I welcome you and invite you to join the sights and sounds that our wonderful country has to offer, I hope you made provisions for doing more than joining us in this venue. It is a great honor to address you here today as we aim to examine and solidify the role of natural gas in a rapidly evolving energy mix. Currently, natural gas makes up 22% of the global energy mix, which is by no means insignificant. Both global production and consumption continue to grow, with prices remaining strong. On the production side, 2017 saw the growth in production from many gas-producing countries, led by Russia, whose production increased by approximately 8% per year on the year. And in North America, Australia, Europe, and Africa, we also had increases through 2017. It must be noted that the majority of net production growth in some of these regions came from unconventional gas production, namely shale. Growth in production was matched by increased consumption. Average global gas consumption has grown 1.9% per year since 2010. In 2017 alone, gas consumption experienced its strongest year-on-year growth, with an increase of 3.7% from 2016. China led the growth in consumption. Consumption growth has been enabled by developments in small-scale LNG and investment in technologies such as floating LNG, floating storage, and regasification units and trucked LNG. Consumers have been keenly receptive to a more liquid LNG market, with spot trading and non-long-term sales attracting more participants to the market. Investments in liquefaction capacities, such as those taking place across North America and Africa, are indicative of growth of the industry and increased market share for natural gas in turn. No discussion about the global energy mix would be complete without considering the shift towards cleaner energy as we seek to mitigate the effects of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, some people may think that the transition to a low-carbon future signals the immediate end of prospects for fossil fuels. However, natural gas continues to remain relevant and increasingly important as a complementary input to infrastructure, employing renewable energy alternatives to guarantee reliable and sustainable output to consumers. Natural gas is the fastest growing energy source other than renewable power, and is also the only energy source among fossil fuels for which consumption is projected to grow. This projected increase in consumption factors significantly into key low-carbon future states, including some of the most aggressive and drastic scenarios. With that being said, one cannot ignore the writing on the wall. In order to maintain market share and to realize continued global gas growth, it is imperative that we adapt and address the issue of sustainability in our gas industries. Achieving sustainability is not the only challenge to robust global gas growth. We must also be able to ensure that natural gas remains competitive with other fuels. However, this must be carefully balanced with efforts to derive maximum value from our resources. Additionally, we must be able to guarantee a security of supply through investments in infrastructure and technology, and by allowing for flexibility in LNG contracts. The issue of LNG contracts is one that needs careful consideration so that all parties involved are able to derive benefits commensurate with the quantum and character of the risks undertaken. Additionally, there is the intrinsic value of state ownership of the basic resource, and the return such exploitation must of necessity bring to the people who own those resources. Ladies and gentlemen, when I speak to you of the great potential and the challenges faced by the natural gas industry, I am not doing so as an outsider or an observer of the industry. I do so as an active participant with first-hand knowledge and a vested interest in securing the future of natural gas. Trinidad and Tobago is by no means a newcomer to the natural gas industry. In fact, we were among the pioneers of hydrocarbon exploration and production. We have been producing oil and gas for over a century. Oil was first discovered in Trinidad in the late 19th century, and commercial production started in 1908. It was not until 1953 that associated gas was first commercially utilized for fueling a power station in Pinal in South Trinidad. We were one of the first countries in the world to employ gas-powered turbines for electricity generation. The critical point for the development of the gas industry in Trinidad and Tobago was the discovery by Amoco in 1968 of large volumes of non-associated gas off the east coast of Trinidad. This discovery came during the period of the oil boom, when buoyant oil prices provided the impetus for exploration investment. This might be a good point for me to tell gas people that initially, Amoco didn't think that Trinidad and Tobago should pursue an LNG business. Our government at the time recognized the tremendous potential of our resources and sought to monetize these resources for the benefit of its citizens. Market development was spurred by significant capital investments in plants and infrastructure in the state. And I may add that a significant portion of that investment was made by the state on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. With the discovery of more gas reserves off the east coast of Trinidad in the 1970s, the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago began to implement strategies for the development of the local gas sector. The Point Lisas Industrial Estate was conceptualized to be established on the west coast of Trinidad to accommodate gas-based industries, where gas is not only a fuel, but a raw material. The development of the industry was essentially demand-driven. Investment decisions on gas-based plants served as a catalyst for the National Gas Company to seek new suppliers. The Natural Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago was formed in 1975, and the Point Lisas Industrial Estate development began. The 1980s saw the development of gas infrastructure and new gas-based industries providing ammonia and methanol production. The 1990s saw further gas sector development with the first train of Atlantic LNG, delivering its first cargo in 1999. Also in the 1990s, a direct reduced iron steel plant was developed at Point Lisas Industrial Estate, further diversifying the country's industrial base. By the late 1990s, gas production exceeded oil production on a barrel of equivalence basis. This ushered in the change from an oil-based economy to a largely gas-based one. The government's focus changed as the country's natural gas endowment grew and there was decline in the oil sector. In 1981, a government white paper outlined steps needed to diversify the Trinidad and Tobago economic output based on natural gas. policies and favored natural gas as a premium energy resource and as a potential generator for foreign exchange was supported by the policy of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. The dawn of the 21st century saw further development of the Atlantic LNG facility. Additional ammonia and methanol plants and the construction of additional gas transportation infrastructure followed. Today, the existing downstream gas consumption portfolio consists of LNG, ammonia and derivatives, methanol, some iron and steel, power, and other industries, including Phoenix Park Gas Processors Limited. The portfolio could consume up to around 4.3 billion cubic feet of gas at full capacity utilization per day. LNG dominates the downstream portfolio, and at full capacity, utilization would account for more than half of total consumption. Petrochemical producers are also significant gas consumers, with ammonia and derivatives, methanol at 18% and 15% of total demand respectively. The power sector accounts for about 8% of demand, with other buyers accounting for about 5%. It should be noted that these figures exclude internal upstream consumption and reinjection, which based on historical data has averaged around 7% of the gross production of Trinidad and Tobago. The Atlantic LNG facility in Point Fortin is by far the largest consumer of gas in Trinidad and Tobago. It accounted for 54.4% of that gas consumption in 2017. The facility consists of 4 liquefaction trains with a total capacity of 14.8 million tons per year. The train sizes of plants 1 to 3, are relatively small by today's standard for greenfield plants, which are commonly 4.5 to 5 million metric tons per year. Train 1 delivered its first LNG cargo in April of 1999, followed by Train 2 in 2002, Train 3 in 2003, and Train 4 in 2005. Train 4 was the world's largest single liquefaction train when it was completed in 2005. Trinidad and Tobago has developed a major gas export industry, both directly in the form of LNG and indirectly through our gas-based petrochemical production in the form of ammonia, urea, and methanol. The sale of these products collectively account for 80% of the gas consumption of Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago's competitive advantage in addressing these markets has been the low cost of the gas resource and the proximity to the world's largest market, the United States, which was short on gas supply and had significant demand for LNG and gas-based petrochemicals. However, these competitive advantages have been eroded over time. Incremental gas supply from Trinidad and Tobago's reserves has become more expensive to develop, and the United States market is now saturated with gas, bolstered by the rapid growth of shale gas, which can be developed at relatively low competitive costs. Consequently, the United States, which was formerly a base load consumer, has now emerged as a major LNG exporter in direct competition with Trinidad and Tobago. As Trinidad and Tobago gas products are pushed out of the North American market, they will have to travel further to reach new markets, which will add to the complexity of supply logistics, increase costs, and reduce our competitiveness in this business. Trinidad and Tobago exports are now competing for markets against products from other supplier countries on price. Trinidad and Tobago has a competitive edge, predominantly to the extent that indigenous resources can be developed and delivered to regional markets at lower costs than those of competitors. Pricing for LNG is not within the control of Trinidad and Tobago, but the value extracted for the benefit of the country ought to depend on the efficiency of the value chain and the cost of exploiting the gas. In petrochemical markets, feedstock and logistic costs are a key competitive advantage. Understanding the new sources of supply and their cost position is important in determining present and future competition and potential target markets. Notwithstanding any and all of this, Trinidad and Tobago remains an encouraging location for the modern gas industry of the commercial world. We are in it to stay. In addition to facing competition from a previous importer of our product, Trinidad and Tobago is also suffering leakage of value of its products. Traders have begun using the system to their advantage. Through clever portfolio management, traders are able to benefit unfairly from our LNG production. As such, very little of the returns from high global LNG prices makes its way back to Trinidad and Tobago. This cannot be allowed to continue, and as such, the current system is being and must be reviewed. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure that this problem of unfair benefit sharing is not unique to Trinidad and Tobago. There may be other countries among us who face this problem in one form or another. The GECF has a mandate to support the sovereign rights of its member countries over their natural gas resources and their ability to independently plan and manage the use of natural gas resources for the benefit of their people. As such, I would like to challenge the GECF to address this problem so that our people and others will no longer be deprived of our sovereign rights. The global gas industry as a whole has its own challenges to face and must meet certain requirements to ensure robust growth in the future. The three main pillars are cost competitiveness, security of supply, and sustainability. As with any other industry or commodity, cost is a direct driver in decision making. Natural gas must remain competitive with other fuel sources. For example, landed LNG costs must be reduced in order to compete with coal in Asia. This required a multifaceted approach, including technological innovation, process improvement, and enhanced competition among suppliers. Further, the development of gas markets in Europe is driving an evolution in gas pricing, with a shift away from oil-linked pricing to hub-based pricing. This has an impact beyond Europe, as this market has become the market of last resort for LNG, and thus has become an important marker in the LNG spot market pricing. It is the dynamics of gas supply and demand which are setting prices, rather than the price of oil or oil-related products. LNG is linking what has traditionally been compartmentalized regional markets. Although LNG trade is relatively small compared to overall gas consumption, it links markets in a more dynamic way than pipeline gas composition and opens the world to gas supply on different commercial terms. The introduction of significant volumes of LNG priced on a US market as the Henry Hub price, and on that basis, combined with the recent oil price drop, has increased the options for gas buyers across the world. I would like to encourage the GECF to work expeditiously to develop and implement the gas pricing index, which I know many members have been working on assiduously. Now more than ever, the need for such a global reference price is evident in order to protect both producers and consumers alike. The second pillar is enabling gas supply security. While reserves and production may be plentiful, factors such as geopolitical rifts and failure of infrastructure can destabilize supply and limit consumers' access to gas. Many of the large global reserve holders, such as Saudi Arabia, have high domestic demand, which may preclude them from developing export projects. Others, such as Turkmenistan, have locational challenges to reach export markets. Australia is leading the next wave of major LNG export expansion, while new capacity is also under construction in Papua New Guinea, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Russia. Australia is projected to produce 85 million metric tons of LNG at 10 projects by 2020. We expect North America and East Africa to be key LNG suppliers. By 2025, Putin projects North American, that's US and Canada, and East African, mainly Mozambique and Tanzania, their LNG exports to reach 69 million metric tons and 12 million metric tons respectively. Global LNG demand has grown as the number of importing countries, largely to meet power generation, increased from 12 in 2000 to 29 countries in 2014. A combination of growing environmental and regulatory pressures, new LNG production capacity, and competitive pricing are projected to drive a strong expansion of LNG imports. By 2040, LNG carriers are expected to move approximately 600 billion cubic meters per year, compared with 320 billion cubic meters in 2015. Therefore, LNG trade will more than double if these projections are realized. Growth in LNG demand is anticipated in every major region except North America, excluding Mexico, where robust growth in domestic shale gas production has almost eliminated imports. Security of supply is imperative to support this anticipated demand and to guarantee that the product from the proposed expansions, which I've just mentioned, can make it to these markets. Again, combating this issue requires a multifaceted approach. Investment in gas pipeline and storage infrastructure is crucial in being able to provide customers with a secure supply of product. Additionally, supply contracts must become less rigid in order to promote a more dynamic market with the ability to respond quickly to changes in market conditions. Finally, new technologies such as floating LNG and floating storage, as well as regasification units, must be invested in for greater market penetration. Finally, as mentioned before, the issue of sustainability must be addressed by adoption of local air pollution policies, investment in research of low-carbon technologies for gas, and by finding solutions to the challenge of methane emissions. Without taking steps, the natural gas industry will not be able to demonstrate its sustainability to cement its place in the energy mix as we move towards greater emphasis on cleaner energy. As we look ahead to the future, Trinidad and Tobago will need to strengthen its drive to increase gas production from its depleting reserves and continue its exploration efforts. Project and infrastructure investment into our upstream sector by major stakeholders is vital to our progress here in Trinidad and Tobago. Fortunately, our stakeholders understand the need for such investment. The upstream companies have committed to spend over $10 billion in exploration and development activities during this ongoing 5-year period. In addition to boosting production it's imperative that we seek the best value for our products. We must adapt to evolving market dynamics as we cope with the rise in shale gas production from the United States and the move to a more liquid market. Atlantic LNG was built predominantly to supply North American gas markets. However, the surge in unconventional natural gas production, which has converted the United States into a potentially large LNG exporter, rivaling Qatar and the United States, with over 200 metric tons of potential supply at various stages of planning, is to be observed and noticed with some concern by Trinidad and Tobago's planning operations. Operators offshore Mozambique and Tanzania are reported to have discovered at least 120 TCF of gas reserves, and they plan to develop multiple LNG export trains as well. This represents coming additional competition for market share. On the downstream side, we must look towards investment in projects to extend the value chain. We have already begun to extend our operations further downstream. An example of this is establishment of a methanol to dimethyl ether, DME complex that was located at 50 hectares of land at the Union Industrial Estate in La Brea. Commercial operations are expected to commence in March 2019, and this complex is expected to produce 1 million metric tons of methanol per annum and 20,000 metric tons of DME per annum. This DME facility will be the second major downstream plant in Trinidad and Tobago in this particular business. On a regional scale, my CARICOM brothers and sisters, it will take a collective effort to protect each other's interests. As a region where the majority of countries are net importers of energy, the energy exporters must do their part to assist in bringing energy security to the region. Natural gas in the form of small-scale LNG arrangements can play a key role in bringing energy stability to our region. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps the ultimate pinnacle of regional cooperation is the recent signing of the agreement between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela for the development of the cross-border Dragon gas field, which is a part of the Marisal Sucre gas complex and straddles Trinidad's northwestern coast and Venezuelan Caribbean coast. This agreement will see gas from the Dragon field being transported to the Hibiscus platform, which is jointly owned by Shell and the government of Trinidad and Tobago for processing right here in Trinidad. The first tranche of Dragon's production is expected to yield approximately 150 million standard cubic feet of gas per day. And we believe that this is just for openers. Ladies and gentlemen, the Dragon deal is a prime example of the symbiotic relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and its nearest neighbor, Venezuela, and an indication of cooperation among neighbors, but more importantly, among two founding members of the GECF member countries. Additionally, the Caribbean region is becoming a hotbed for hydrocarbon exploration. Recent successes in exploration in Guyana has prompted interests in Suriname, Cuba, Barbados, Grenada, and Guyana. These countries can benefit from Trinidad's experience in the hydrocarbon arena while providing opportunities for Trinidad and Tobago in many aspects of the hydrocarbon value chain. However, there must be cooperation in areas of policy development and the reconfiguration of energy systems to facilitate any such agreements. The need for cooperation and collaboration extends beyond our region and applies to all of us on an international level. We are indeed fortunate to have an organization like the GECF to facilitate large-scale and international collaborative efforts. Trinidad and Tobago, as a mature market participant and a founding member, stands ready to assist market entrants and to pass on lessons learned, good or bad, as we are currently doing with countries such as Equatorial Guinea and Ghana in West Africa, and Tanzania and Mozambique further to the east. As a country, we have a vast network of human resources with knowledge in technical areas and in the development of marketing and pricing models and policies. Conversely, we are open to learning from other member states in our GECF grouping. It is my hope that we can all move forward as an industry, strengthened by collaboration, as we face the challenges and changes which are coming our way. I look forward to lively and productive dialogue in today's panel discussion, and I anticipate that we will leave here today all enriched one way or the other. Let me once again take this opportunity to welcome to the shores of Trinidad and Tobago all those who are coming for the first time, and to welcome back those who've been here before, and to remind you that Trinidad and Tobago is not only about gas and oil, we are about the Caribbean in its totality. Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, the Caribbean Energy Map is a publication produced by the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, the NGC, and industry partners in collaboration with UK-based Petroleum Economists Limited, which is one of the key cartographic institutions involved in the creation of energy maps worldwide. The first of its kind was unveiled in 2005, and a second was jointly produced in 2015. This is therefore the third Caribbean Energy Map. This investment fits with the company's public education agenda to build awareness around the energy sector and also supports NGC's international growth agenda and presence. Data supplied by the MAP's sponsors and the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries is used by petroleum economist cartographers to prepare an in-depth illustration of the energy landscape of the region. This map includes data on oil, gas, and coal reserves, and utilization, electricity consumption, LNG trade routes, infrastructure and volumes, refinery projects, regional demographics, and more general world energy factoids, which make the map a useful academic and industry resource. This year, for the first time, data on renewable energy projects, current usage and targets for the Caribbean region have also been included, as well as an insert feature on the national energy's port of Galeota. This map and several others are available for purchase from Petroleum Economist, but today you will be receiving a personal copy at the end of this symposium. I now introduce Mr. Mark Loquan, President of NGC, to deliver a few remarks. Please welcome Mr. Mark Loquan.
All protocols observed. Morning, everyone. As the Master of Ceremonies has shared, NGC has been graciously allowed a few minutes on the GECF agenda to unveil a very special publication, the Caribbean Energy Map 2018. We could not ask for a more eminent platform for this launch or a more distinguished audience, so let me thank the GECF organizers for facilitating this request. This year, NGC and Shell Trinidad and Tobago, along with the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, have collaborated to deliver this map, which I have the honor of presenting to you today. The Caribbean Energy Map is a snapshot of the energy landscape of the region, which gives details of each island's energy resources and utilization. This includes statistics such as reserves, production, consumption, refining capacity, exports and imports of crude, natural gas, and coal, as well as installed capacity and net consumption of electricity. We have also illustrated LNG flows from Trinidad and Tobago to other Caribbean and continental jurisdictions, and Trinidad and Tobago's marine acreage allocation, which highlights the cost of energy producers farming offshore. For the very first time this year, this map profiles renewable energy usage and targets across the Caribbean. Inset charts summarize the data, and icons on the map pinpoint the location of wind farms, solar plants, biomass plants, and geothermal facilities. These inclusions reflect the environmental ethos of our time and the commitment of NGC, Shell, and the Ministry to keep sustainability and clean energy in our line of sight. Energy is evolving, and so too must our business portfolio. At NGC, we are now looking to leverage our strengths in other areas to enhance our value proposition to potential global partners. We do not want to just produce and deliver energy, but to support energy and energy education. On behalf of NGC and co-sponsor Shell, I'm happy to inform you you will be all among the first to have access to this resource, as you will each receive a complimentary copy to take with you. We trust that you will find it insightful and welcome any feedback as how we can improve in the next iteration. On that note, I need to convey gratitude on behalf of my team to Shell, Trinidad and Tobago, for your steadfast support in the production of the Caribbean Energy Map. The mere fact of your participation indicates your company's investment in and commitment to regional energy development. Taking this map from concept to ink and paper was months-long undertaking, and we could not have done it without the collaboration of our project partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time and attention, and I do hope that this map will serve you in your respective business and organizations. Do enjoy the rest of today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mark Loquan, President of NGC. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite Senator the Honorable Franklin Kann, the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries of Trinidad and Tobago, to join Mr. Loquan on stage to officially launch the 2018 Energy Map of the Caribbean. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Loquan, and thank you, Honorable Minister. Today, there will be two panel discussions. The first of these is a ministerial panel discussing the topic natural gas and long-term energy security. The moderator for today's panel discussion is energy economist and university lecturer, Mr. Gregory Maguire. Joining Mr. Maguire on the panel are His Excellency Senator the Honorable Franklin Kann, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, President of the Ministerial Meeting of the GECF. His Excellency Gabriel Mbaga Obiang Lima, Minister of Mines and Hydrocarbons of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea. His Excellency Mustafa Buitoni, Minister of Energy of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. And Engineer Seydou Mohamed, Chief Operations Officer, Gas and Power of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Nigeria. Once the stage has been prepared, we'll invite Mr. Maguire and our ministerial panel to make their way on stage and be seated for the first of our panel discussions. This topic is natural gas and long-term energy security.
Moderator, no?
Okay, sure. So, thank you. This is Gregory. Nice to meet you. Gregory. Nice to meet you, sir. Yes, 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 yes. Pleasant good morning to all protocols observed. So welcome to our first panel today. The panel to look at natural gas and long-term energy security. And the International Energy Agency defines energy security as the uninterrupted availability of energy sources at an affordable price. So two issues it flags in that definition. One is price and the other is availability. And there are a number of sub-issues that fall out of that. Price and how you determine price, whether we're dealing with Henry Hub pricing or oil-linked pricing. And availability treats with both long-term as well as short-term security, the availability of resources, infrastructure and transportation issues, long-term versus short-term contracts. And then there are also issues around competitiveness with alternative energy resources, all of which affect energy security. So too does new technology in terms of technology for production as well as utilization of natural gas. And there's another issue in the long term that not many people would focus on, and I find that, and that's finding the right balance between different applications of natural gas as energy and as feedstock for petrochemicals. These are just a few of the many issues related to natural gas, long-term, and its role in long-term energy security. And we do have an esteemed panel that will take us through the discussion this morning. The panel begins with a video from His Excellency Alexander Novak, the Energy Minister, the Minister of Energy of Russia. And so we would just take that and then I would return to introduce the other speakers as we go. So, video ready for His Excellency Alexander Novak. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to greet all of you, the participants of the International Gas Symposium here today. I believe that this event will create a foundation for future discussions of gas markets perspectives in a wider format. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the GECF. For this period, in the energy sector, a significant transformation has taken place. New technologies have emerged, and the world energy balance has changed. Gas production in the world has grown grown by about 600 billion cubic meters. Global gas trade has increased by 42%, or 313 billion cubic meters. The LNG market has also transformed. It grew by more than 59%, which is almost 3 times higher than the growth rate of trade in pipeline gas. With cheaper and more efficient liquefaction and transportation technologies, the number of gas-consuming countries grew from 8 to 35 in just a decade. In total, global LNG demand will more than double from about 250 to 550 million tons per year by 2035. The growth in LNG demand will be affected by its conquest of fundamentally new markets. By the year 2030, LNG may secure at least 7% of the marine fuel market, and we see the surge of natural gas-based motor fuels. Russian companies are also very active in the LNG market. Yamal LNG project has already been launched, and there is a wide list of upcoming projects, including Arctic LNG, Baltic LNG, the expansion of Sakhalin II, etc. According to our projections, it will allow for Russian companies to increase LNG production by 5 times. We know all too well that a significant transformation in the structure of the global gas market is underway. Stock trading methods are being used more often in price fixing. At the same time, global gas processes in the world's gas market require manufacturers to take the initiative. Currently, there are a number of projects from potential consumers to form national and regional gas indexes and indicators, for example in China, Singapore and Japan. With that in mind, the GECF must say its weighty word and promote the formation of alternative indicators that would take into account the interests of consumers and traditional suppliers that make up the organization. It is extremely important not to miss this moment and not to postpone the resolution of this issue for the long term. I hope that the matter is sufficiently covered during the symposium. I would like to wish everyone productive work and also to wish success and new achievements for the GECF on its way towards becoming a universal global forum to discuss natural gas issues.
Thank you very much. So, I should say that the way we will proceed with the rest of the panel discussion is that we will take presentations from each panelist, and then we will open the floor for questions and comments. I hope you will agree with me. I don't know that you have a choice, though. Thank you. Our next speaker would be His Excellency Senator Franklin Khan, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Trinidad and Tobago. And Senator Khan is trained as a petroleum geologist and has spent more than 20 years in a broad range of positions in technical and managerial levels in the energy sector, locally and abroad. He has served as president of the Geological Society of Trinidad and Tobago and as a director of the Water and Sewage Authority and chairman of the National Petroleum Marketing Company. He is, of course, a member of Parliament, and he was former chairman of the People's National Movement, the party in power. He holds a BSc degree in Geology and Geography and an MBA. Would you please welcome Senator Khan? I don't know whether you're speaking from the floor or whether you're using the podium, sir. You coming here? Very well. So, Senator Khan, warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Before I begin, let me publicly thank my good friend, His Excellency Alexander Novak, who is the Russian's energy minister, who was one of the first persons who had confirmed his attendance to the GECF ministerial meeting. He's one minister who has never missed a ministerial meeting, but he was fortunately or unfortunately called to other duties with his president, who I think will be visiting Singapore from today, and he's part of the Russian delegation in Singapore. Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, as our distinguished keynote speaker would have said a short while ago, Trinidad and Tobago is no stranger to the natural gas industry. In fact, We have been there almost since the beginning. And today, we have a well-developed gas-based industry. This includes a vibrant upstream sector in which BP, Shell, BHP, and EOG Resources are the major players. The midstream, which consists of the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago, known as the NGC, who operates as the sole aggregator of gas, and Phoenix Park Gas Processors Limited, and our downstream, represented by a mature and robust petrochemical sector. We are the world's largest exporter of ammonia and the second largest exporter of methanol from a single site. And by the way, that's no mean achievement for a small country like Trinidad and Tobago. We were also pioneers in the LNG industry. So we have been there to experience the evolution of the natural gas industry from a new venture to the dynamic market that it is today. And if we wish to continue to grow with it, we must be able to adapt to future changes. There's no doubt that natural gas holds a significant share of the global energy mix, and it will continue to do so as reserves are abundant. The development of new technologies and techniques is allowing us better access to these reserves, to the extent that financing for projects can now be secured from 2P reserves, which is proven and possible. Whereas in the past, only 1P reserve, only proven reserves, were able to secure financing. This is indicative of the confidence that financiers have in our ability to extract and monetize gas reserves. And I mean that globally. After extracting the natural gas, we must be able to bring it to the market for the right price and at a reasonable cost. LNG production has been instrumental in enabling us to market our natural gas. LNG has helped to unite fragmented markets to create a global gas market that we now know today. Further developments such as small-scale LNG and floating LNG are allowing better access to markets and better market penetration. These factors make natural gas a key player in bringing long-term energy security to many countries. However, as has been the theme all morning, some challenges still remain. Ladies and gentlemen of this distinguished audience, one downside of being a pioneer in any industry is having to learn lessons the hard way, because there's no precedent when we entered the gas industry and the gas market. Today, Trinidad is facing the consequences of the way our model for marketing our LNG is set up. Traders who operate have found ways to work the system to their advantage in such a way that profits are moved beyond our tax net and we do not receive the true value of the economic rent due to us. And many countries, particularly in Africa, also experience that. And my colleagues on the head table here will possibly hint to that. This problem needs to be addressed to ensure that we are receiving what is our sovereign right. Energy security cannot come at the expense of our citizens. The value chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So we must be able to safeguard the integrity and robustness of its individual parts. To do so, we are now faced with the task of revisiting our contracts and adjusting it to address these shortcomings. Hopefully, other countries now entering the market can learn from our experiences. Another challenge that we face is adapting to an evolving market. When we entered the industry early in the game, LNG was a long-term business. Contracts were long-term to ensure that the cost of the investment was well recovered, and rightfully so. Contracts were long-term to ensure that the cost was well recovered. However, today's market is much more medium to short-term. Spot trading has become more and more prominent because the amount of supply on the market and well-developed infrastructure allows for it. It must be noted that whilst the market is moving towards more short to medium-term format, some 20-year contracts are still being drawn up for the supply of US LNG to Germany, for example. To cope with a widely varying market and in order to realize the full economic potential of our LNG, we need to be flexible. This kind of flexibility is necessary to allow the market to operate with more liquidity, as the Prime Minister indicated. While liquidity and the ability to get products on demand is critical or crucial to short-term energy security, we must be able to ensure that it does not compromise long-term energy security. Notwithstanding these challenges, we have been actively taking steps to secure our future in the natural gas industry. We recently signed an agreement with our neighbors, Venezuela, for the development of the Dragon field. This momentous cooperative effort will provide Venezuela with a ready market for their gas, while Trinidad will receive substantial amount of natural gas for processing, for use, and for export. You may have heard about our 2018 shallow water bid round, which will be launched before the end of the year. Actually, it was launched this week. In this bid round, 6 blocks of the northeast and west coast will be on offer. In addition to this, we also intend to have 2 more bid rounds next year, which will include some onshore and deep water blocks. Of course, such ventures will not be successful without the participation of our upstream companies. Our upstream partners, and I want to publicly congratulate them and thank them, continue to show their commitment to our industry through continued investment. Upstream companies have committed to invest over $10 billion in exploration and development activity over the next 5 years. Having said that, natural gas has been and will continue to be a crucial part of Trinidad and Tobago's economy. Furthermore, the combination of abundant reserves, the technology to extract and mobilize these reserves, and existing and growing markets for the product speak to the sustainability of natural gas as a major player in long-term energy security. It is up to us, as members of the GECF, to ensure that we continue to work to strengthen our industry. All members, all potential members, I think we'll be getting 2 new members tomorrow when the ministers' meeting is held. We'll formally induct Angola and Mozambique. And we will be doing well. And again, I want to welcome all the GECF delegates, and as we continue to explore the future with confidence. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Khan. Our next speaker would be His Excellency Gabriel Obiang Mbalima, Minister of Hydrocarbon at Equatorial Guinea. His Excellency is a Minister of Mines and Hydrocarbons in Equatorial Guinea, presiding over the 3rd largest oil producing market in sub-Saharan Africa. The minister is widely regarded for his incisive leadership and for his guidance of Equatorial Guinea's energy industry through a period of growth and renewal. to address us. But let us please welcome His Excellency Banga Lima.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for those kind words. His Excellency, Dr. Honorable K. Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. His Excellency, Senator, the Honorable Franklin Kang, Minister of Energy and Energy Industry of Trinidad and Tobago. His Excellency, Mustafa Buitoni, Minister of Energy of the Democratic Republic of Algeria. Dear representative of other member countries of GSA, all protocol observed. I today bring you the greetings of the people of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I would like to thank the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Minister of Energy for the warm reception that my delegation and myself have received since we arrived to the beautiful city of Port-au Spain. I am here today at the Symposium, one day before the 20th Ministerial Meeting of GSA, to pay our respect to the people of Trinidad and Tobago for three main reasons. The first one, before the Republic of Equatorial Guinea built his first and only LNG plant, we did visit Trinidad and Tobago, and we visited for advice. And I have to say, we were advised, and we will always be thankful for those advice. Secondly, this organization, GSA, will not be what it is today if it were not for the people of Trinidad and Tobago as one of the founding members of the organization. And thirdly, we do believe Trinidad and Tobago still have an important role to play in the future development of the gas sector in the world and of this organization. Because we do know that Trinidad and Tobago is a very good model to follow. We did it, and we have been successful because of it. The Republic of Equatorial Guinea is one of, and probably the smallest producers of the GSA and also of OPEC. Roughly 300,000 barrels equivalent of liquid. We are also one of the members with the smallest population, 1,200,000. A country surrounded by other member countries who are larger producers with larger reserve, and one of the last ones to develop those resources. And I have to say that we have done a very efficient exploitations of that resource in a rapid and efficient way. I say this because it will be very important to know that this is very familiar for another country, and this is Trinidad and Tobago. I have to say that we emulate the phase one of what Trinidad and Tobago did with the construction of our methanol plant, our LNG plant, our CNG plant, and a gas-to-power plant. The topic of today, it is natural gas and long-term security. And today many countries, including the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, like Trinidad and Tobago, are looking for exploiting the resources with exporting focus. But we need to start looking to the internal demand, especially for job-creating aim and creation of value for our resources. And I'm aware, and I know, that the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has been at the forefront of this policy for a long time. The other part that is very important for the long-term security is the development of infrastructure to transport the resources, especially from a stranded gas field like we have seen today through the Dragon field. And this is to take those resources to industrial processing areas that also Trinidad and Tobago have a long experience. Before I give my final remarks, I would like to inform that we do have a new initiative that my country will implement in 2019. And this will be an initiative to support and motivate the cooperation in the gas and oil sector. 2019, there's going to be two key events that we are very happy to host. The first one will be in April, and this will be the APO. This is the Association of African Producer Countries, CAP7, in which we will get together in the city of Malabo the majority of the oil and gas exporting country in Africa, and also we have invited from the other continent, from America to Europe, and at the same time Asia. The second event, it will be the 5th Summit of Head of State of Gas Exporting Country. That will be in November, in which, of course, we will expect to have our brothers and sisters on Trinidad to be there. So hopefully I'll see you there. For my final remarks, I would like to summarize some key points. The first one, cooperation between gas exporting countries is key. Second one, the share of experience in downstream and transportation of gas is fundamental. And thirdly, promotion of further role of the GSA as an organization to promote the gas use in the future is essential. The same way that I did when I started my speech, I would like to commend and thank always the hospitality of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and I hope to see you next year in Malabo. With this, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Let's move on. Our next speaker is from Republic of Nigeria. Saidu Mohammed is Engineer Saidu Mohammed is Group Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company. Before he held this position, he was also the Managing Director of Kaduna Refining and Petrochemical Company, a subsidiary of NNPC. Engineer Saidu was for several years the Managing Director of the Nigeria Gas Company. So let us, with a warm welcome, a round of applause, welcome Engineer Saidu Mohammed.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me also stand on the existing protocol. But nevertheless, I must recognize Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Rowley. It's really an honor to have you here, and thank you very much. Distinguished delegates, let me first of all apologize on behalf of my Honorable Minister, Dr. Ibeka Chiku, who would have been here, but for the last minute change in programs. But nevertheless, he sends his goodwill. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me start by, we are talking of natural gas and long-term energy security. So we have to look at it from the benefits, or rather the key quality of what energy is supposed to be, not only being a catalyst to the development, but also being the main driver and central to sustainable development. And sustainable development will always require energy of large resource, energy of abundance, and energy of the choice, which must be clean, in line with the climate conditions or climate demands that we have today put on ourselves in the world over. So hence energy security needs to balance between the socio-economic and environmental balances towards that sustainability. And when you talk about qualities of the energy that you require to make that energy security sustainable, you cannot run away from natural gas. Of course, natural gas stands out, but nevertheless, the kind of energy that we need, as I earlier said, must be abundant, must be reliably supplied, and must be supplied at the right cost, or right price rather, to make it affordable. And also, once you sustain that, then you need to consolidate on that. And how to consolidate on that is you have to have investments that will make sure that those capacities that you have built, the networks that you have built, are sustained and are there for the purpose of sustaining the reliability of that energy link. And also we have often seen that there is need to balance the energy market realities. And the energy market realities here, I talk about the prices, the availability, and the energy security of every nation where you operate. And for that, you need policies that must promote an energy structure that will favor an abundant and affordable, clean and environmentally friendly energy source. And that's what brings us to natural gas. And that's why natural gas stands at the choice of energy sources that will provide that kind of long-term security that we are requiring. We all know that even though there are inroads by renewables and nuclear, the use of fossil fuel remains dominant, and thus will continue to grow according to the forecast of the experts. The primary energy consumption recorded growth in 2017 and is still on the growth thanks to the demand, most especially from China and then India. The IAE projection forecast that there will be a growth of about 15,000 to 20,000 metric tons equivalent of oil as the primary demand for fossil fuel by 2040. And unfortunately, there is still a deficit, there is a gap, where this world, we have over 1 billion people still without reliable electricity. And most worrisome is the fact that cooking fuels are even not available in the cleanest way they should be. But most hit in the region where we come from, in sub-Saharan Africa, where we have recorded up to, just not up to even 25% of reliable supply of electricity to the generality of the populace. And on the irony, this is a continent that has over 7% of the oil and gas reserves and most abundant renewable energy sources in terms of wind, in terms of course, we are blessed by where we are with the sunshine of most 11 months out of a year. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to talk about the characteristics of natural gas to an audience like this, but we all know that natural gas stands clear. But what is the challenge to us is to ensure that what we are today doing, about 54% of the global LNG market, and producers collectively of over 45% of the gas reserves, gas production in the world, we have to just sustain that. And how do we do that? We have to continue the investment that we require to bring up the capacity and also network in terms of gas infrastructure to make that gas available. Let me also attempt to just highlight some few points in terms of the threats that we all know. What is the threat to the global long-term energy security in terms of natural gas supply? You find that, of course, the political environment, where the Prime Minister today has just said it subtly, the geopolitical rifts among nations is one big threat that we have. And then we also have the challenges of inadequate energy infrastructure. This will require a lot of investments in terms of making either the LNG capacities build up or in terms of network of pipelines to deliver the gas. And on local levels, you always have facilities. One of such we experience in Nigeria in particular, the arrests in the Niger Delta where the oil and gas is being produced. Pricing will continue to be a challenge, not in terms of not being adequate, but the challenge here is for the natural gas producers to produce the gas at the lowest cost to guarantee that they remain afloat. And that is the big challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, there are enablers. We all know them. We all know that, yes, you always require good legislation and then policies that will promote the use of natural gas and to promote the development and make sure that that gas is available to the market. And for that to be done, you have to make it attractive for investors to come in and put in their money to build up the capacity of LNG plants and build up the capacity of a robust network of gas pipelines nationwide and, of course, to the sub-regions where you operate. We need to have the sustainable stakeholder management and engagement and of course innovative financial mechanisms this day that the money is having many competitions. You have to be innovative to get that desired level of investments. Gas investments are notably very high. We all know that, so of course to get that you have to be innovative in getting structures and in getting commercial terms that will be favorable for you to have that kind of. We have to continue the gas advocacy in terms of the climate change requirements and make sure that the emissions of greenhouse effect gases is minimized, and that is where we will emphasize on the need to harness and to develop more natural gas for the entire benefit of the global energy balance. Coming home to Nigeria, we are not far from all other speakers that have talked before. We are, of course, we have the natural gas resources, no doubt about it, but then the development has been at the infancy. We have not grown that much. Today, Nigeria produces about 8 billion standard cubic feet of gas per day, out of which about 40% is for the LNG. Only 20% is consumed locally in terms of domestic market. And that is where the opportunity lies, and that is where the emphasis today is. How do you grow, how do you continue to grow the market in Nigeria and then the sub-regions in order to ensure that energy security, not only in Nigeria, but then in the neighboring countries and the entire continent of Africa is sustained. And that is where the government of today, ably led by our President, Muhammadu Buhari, is emphasizing among the 7 big wins that is being propelled by my Honorable Minister today under the Ministry of Petroleum Resources to ensure that we have growth. We have developed the gas policies that will make sure that it attracts investors and also to monetize the natural resource that we are endowed with. The gas flare commercialization program, also under the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, is there to ensure that we no longer flare. Our flare has come down from very high, where we are all known as a region of flare, but today, thank God, we are flaring between 7 to 9% of what we produce. It has come down considerably, but then we have no any reason to flare except for the purpose of sustaining the stability of the operations. So flare is a key issue, and we need legislations that will make sure that such things happen. On the domestic front, we have developed some criteria in terms of getting the network in a robust form, the Trans-Nigerian Pipeline Network. We are today adding about 1,000 kilometers of pipelines throughout the nation as backbone to the energy supply within the country. And we have also identified 7 critical projects that will add about 3 billion standard cubic feet per day of gas into the domestic market. And we are also continuing to maximize our benefits. As you may all know, there is regional pipeline today that runs between Nigeria, Benin Republic, Togo, and Ghana. And that is to say that we have to maximize the benefit of that pipeline in ensuring that it is available for the energy security, to make sure that gas is available for power generation within those countries. And we have already opened that access. It's available today for various injection of different types of gas. And it is on that note that we also want to build the capacity to expand to the countries that have already found new gases in Ghana, in Senegal, and Cote d'Ivoire, to make sure that those gases are also harnessed in a commercial way and to the benefit of the entire energy security. And that is where the concept of the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline comes in. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the panel is here, but what I will say essentially is to say that we need collaboration between ourselves as gas producers, but most especially we have to look at ways of being innovative to make sure that we bring down costs of gas supply to ensure that we remain afloat and keep that reliable and most dominant and most cherished product available for the entire globe, natural gas and energy security. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I have the honor to be here, and then I also want to part on this note to remind you that of the goodwill that I had earlier said from my Honorable Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Our final speaker on this panel is His Excellency Mustafa Buitoni, the Minister of Energy for Algeria, and he's been Algerian Energy Minister since May 2007, after being CEO of the Sonala Gas holding company, the Algerian Gas and Power Company. Without much further ado, let us welcome His Excellency Mustafa Buitoni.
Merci à vous. Excellences, Monsieur le Premier ministre, Excellences, Messieurs les ministres, Excellences, Monsieur le Secrétaire général du GECF, Mesdames et Messieurs de la presse, honorable assistance. C'est un réel plaisir d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui dans cette merveilleuse ville de Port d'Espagne pour répondre à l'invitation de Son Excellence le sénateur Franklin Khan, ministre de l'Énergie et des Industries énergétiques, qui a bien voulu nous offrir cette belle opportunité de nous rencontrer à nouveau autour des thématiques qui nous sont chères. Car au-delà des thématiques à l'étude et des problématiques au débat, c'est avant tout des valeurs et une vision qui nous unissent et que nous partageons au sein du GECF. En effet, permettez-moi de vous dire qu'au-delà des molécules incolores et inodores extraites du sous-sol pour répondre à des besoins énergétiques diversifiés, il y a aujourd'hui des enjeux et des défis que tous ensemble nous devons relever. Le défi de satisfaire la demande d'énergie d'une population mondiale qui passera à 7,3 milliards d'habitants en 2015, qui est passé à 7,3 milliards d'habitants en 2015 et à 9,2 milliards en 2040, vivant principalement dans les pays en développement et au milieu de plus en plus.
Where we have more and more developing countries coming to the fore. This is a primary industry that we hope that will continue to grow by more than 35% in 2040. Despite the improvements we have made in the energy sector, and with the progress that we have made on the technological level, we must be mindful of the political challenges and how it affects our energy policies, how it allows for us to remain a viable sector, mindful of the small and great risk. As we move forward, we must have consensus from the international community as to the importance that natural gas can play in overcoming the challenges that we have had in terms of the energy supply and ensuring for a long-term sustainable energy supply. These are but a few advantages that we have linked to the use of natural gas as it becomes a primary source of energy in establishing energy security for the long term. In fact, natural gas is abundant. It can sustain our energy needs for the future in a sustainable way. Natural gas continues to grow with more than 100 years of experience and a growth rate that continues to be optimistic, with more than 230 years to go. Natural gas can still also be used in many sectors. For example, not only energy generation, for the petrochemical supplies as well. It is a viable and dominant option for the energy sector. It is also quite flexible. Natural gas presents an effective and efficient way and that can allow for even further development of renewable energies. This must be taken in conjunction with the fact that natural gas is also less pollutant than the hydrocarbon fuels that I've used in the past. Ladies and gentlemen, the progress we have realized in the natural gas sector for the last 15 years is only testament of the possibility, the limitless possibilities of the continuous use of natural gas and the advantages that can be derived from the use of natural gas, even in the face of the development of shale gas coming out of the United States. We must modify our approach at the global level in terms of energy supply. We must continue to build our capacity so that we can respond to the new demands of energy producers and natural gas producers. Natural gas finds that we have found in Africa and on the Mediterranean will allow us to continue to diversify within this sector as we seek to ensure the security of the supply. However, we must be vigilant because despite these advantages that natural gas presents, we will face certain challenges and we must make every effort to overcome them. One must highlight the fact that the information surrounding natural gas continues to affect negatively how it is seen. Therefore, it is imperative that forums such as ours continue to sensitize the public as to the essential benefits of using natural gas. Secondly, the question of investment. Natural gas presents an excellent solution for our energy challenges and also for the possibility of sustainable energy provision. It can only improve as we continue to seek new ways of production, as we continue to seek new cost-effective ways of supplying energy. With this in mind, I continue to support the work of this forum as we seek to be more competitive, as we seek to implement even more research and discoveries in the sector, and I highlight the fact of Algeria being the site of the Institute of Research for Natural Gas. Thirdly, we must recognize that natural gas is facing certain threats as we have greater reliance on hydrocarbons and coal, which have not been integrated into the energy market. We must continue to seek to ensure that natural gas has a position in the international market and that there are policies in line with expanding this sector. Policies of the past have had a perverse effect on the development of the natural gas sector, given an unjust pricing regime. This regime, which was linked to a poor-performing hydrocarbon market, which was to the detriment of natural gas. The effects of these policies are in contradiction with the growth that we have seen and the growth that is needed as we continue to secure a long-term supply of natural gas. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this moment to highlight the importance of dialogue as we seek to develop and encourage further growth within the gas industry. This dialogue has been the base and will continue to be the base of the emergence of a strong gas-driven policy as we move forward and look at our contracts for the future. A deep-rooted change is required if we are to see the continued development of the gas development, if we are to see gas be truly competitive on the world level, as we seek to see gas being the #1 choice of fuel for moving major products forward, as we seek to enter mature markets such as Europe, as we hope that gas will be the #1
TTT News, delivering more news at more times to more people. TTT News, reporting on the people, events, and issues that affect your life. TTT News, online and fully interactive. TTT News, connect.
Always been aware of the potential of the gas industry, and as we seek new partners and supporters, we continue to support the move as we seek to bring producers and consumers together. Our organization continues to work for this end. It is in the spirit of dialogue and consultation that has been promoted by my own president, as we continue to make historical steps towards seeing gas rise as and be chosen as the #1 fuel for the future. It is with the same spirit that we wish to continue to encourage in the discussions that we will have today and tomorrow here in this wonderful city of Trinidad and Tobago, as we continue to work towards and work together. We shall achieve the dream of having natural gas take its position as each one of us move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. We're short on time, but I think we would still have to press on to take a few questions. Just to summarize, that I think we heard from our various speakers, they all touched on a number of issues. The state of the state of global energy demand and the role of natural gas in that mix. Some perspectives on the role of the GECF in long-term energy security. I think more than one speaker emphasized the need for cooperation among countries as well as for players within the gas energy value chain. We heard on the developments in the respective countries. We also heard about the role gas can play as an effective strategy for reducing greenhouse gases, as well as issues around short-term, long-term supply and changes in the logistical arrangements and contracting arrangements with respect to natural gas. I want to therefore open the floor for a few questions, comments from anyone. There are microphones about, so just go to the microphone and let us have your questions or comments. Thank you. Yes. Well, then let me use the prerogative of the chair to set the ball rolling. Could any one of the speakers care to comment on the business of the relative competition between gas and renewable energy in the future energy mix?
Okay, testing. Yeah. Okay. I mean, obviously the world is going clean energy, but we have to remember that natural gas is the cleanest of the fossil fuels. So while we are technically regarded as a fossil fuel, we just have to remember that we are the top of the line in terms of that spectrum, in terms of how dirty a fuel is. Having said that, the example I like to draw is that what is the use of an electric car when you're generating the power from coal? So your first phase of conversion has to be to convert coal power generation to natural gas power generation, or ultimately to renewables. And the classic example of that is China. China still I think it's 60 or 70% of the power generation still comes from coal. So if China is to bring down its coal power generation to 30%, that is a phenomenally huge market. And the growth of China's LNG import is testimony of that. So while theoretically we can say in a clean world and in a non-fossil fuel world, ultimately renewable energies will probably go to front. I think it will take many decades before we reach that position. Because to me, the crux of the matter is in power generation more so than in transportation.
Thank you very much, Minister. Yeah, comment this side.
Merci. Je ne sais pas si on m'entend. Je voudrais compléter ce qu'a dit mon collègue.
To what my share colleague said, I think that natural gas has a long years ahead of it for certain reasons. As we think of renewable energy coming into play, natural gas is 60% in that mix. It is a mix that will last for a long term. Some gas and petrol producing countries have now beginning to think about moving to becoming gas producing countries. And I'm talking about Algeria, which is thinking about and is becoming, for the medium term, a gas producing country. So what we should really think about is to expand our cooperation as gas producing countries and use these forums to firstly strengthen our position as producing countries and exporting countries of gas, and also with a view to creating a bank of information which could help us to advance in this project. And as I keep saying, that gas will continue to become increasingly important for years and years to come. So we should get together to overcome these challenges that my colleague was just referring to earlier.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You want to go?
Yeah. Just to add to what my colleague said, but I would like us to also look at it from this angle. Rather than looking at gas competing with renewables, I want to just say that it's more of complementing the renewables, because from what Senator said, from what distinguished Senator said, obviously you need cleaner fuel to generate the electricity, and that is when we are talking about in the automobile section where electricity is coming in to take over the fossil fuels in terms of fuel for vehicles. But then also if we look at it from the bio aspect of renewables, where we need to farm to produce those ingredients that will form the basis of the production of the competing fuels, notably ethanol. Natural gas has a lot of play there in terms of providing the ingredients, notably the fertilizer. So really, I see growth in terms of even when you are propelling the use of renewables. So I see more of complementing than competition going forward. There is no doubt about it that the growth of demand for natural gas will continue from all other sectors. But then also, the renewables need a propellant. And the propellant in this case is another cheaper source of energy, and that is natural gas. So complementary, really, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much. Yes, you want to make a few comments?
Yes.
Please.
Okay. I just want to give my comments, and it's going to be very straight. I say straight because I do have to participate in different events in my country where my colleagues, citizens, are not very familiar with oil and gas. They ask me the same question. And the best way that I usually convince them is to explain them that both the conventional, the renewable, they are not competing. They are like my fellow from Nigeria said, they are complementary. So what I usually say is not that there is any one of them taking any market share. The only thing that is happening is the pie is getting bigger, and they are convenient. And I do believe that there is always subject on what the end users need to use it, because there are some places that is more convenient to use renewable, and there are some uses that it is more convenient to use the conventional. So it is not an issue of what is going to be the future. They are both complementary, and I do believe both of them are necessary. But like I said, there are some places that conventionals are better than renewable, and also it's subject of economics. There are some countries that did provide a lot of subsidies to make sure that the renewable were economics, but depending on the change of the market, sometimes they are more favorable and sometimes they are not. So clearly, both of them, they are complementary, and we do need both of them, and it's not an issue of which one is better or which one should be more invested than the other one. Okay.
Thank you very much. So that's right. Anyone from the House again? Thank you very much, sir. Bring the mic to the front, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm from Iran. I'm representing Iranian delegation. I enjoyed a lot from presentation made by Honorable Prime Minister and other speakers, the panelists. I'm wondering that we are talking about the security of supply and security of energy for future by looking to the gas, but I didn't hear anything about one of the biggest reserve, the first reserve of the gas is in Iran, 70% of total world gas, and today we are producing more than 800 million cubic meters of gas per day, which by the end of this year we will touch the 900, and we will get the third producers of gas. I wanted to remind that we do support the security of supply for gas and the development of gas. We need to look unilaterally to all possibilities and opportunities for gas development and gas export, and we should not respect to the unilateral sanction which is trying to limit the people of the world having better and more access to the natural gas. Thank you.
Thank you. I take that as a comment. Yeah. Is anybody on the floor willing to address that? Basically saying that we didn't hear us discuss. You take it? Yes, sir?
My comments are not either for either country or either issue. It's more on how the war works. It is a global war. And the best example is how Equatorial Guinea had been able to benefit from the collaboration like countries like Trinidad and Tobago, and the collaboration like other countries like Qatar. And the best example is the supply of LNG to the Atlantic Basin. Equatorial Guinea had been able to coordinate with other countries to provide in the Atlantic Basin the same way that countries like Qatar have been able to provide to Asia. And a lot of the big majors, traders, have been benefit because of that trade. So I have to say that all the resources in the world are necessary, and clearly gas is a very important resource that we need to utilize. It's cheaper than oil and diesel, and developing countries, especially in Africa, they need gas. We do need gas. We are using a lot of generators by diesel. Diesel is very expensive. So if we actually use our generator by gas, we definitely will be able to benefit. But also we know that gas have other derivatives that can benefit our economy. So I have to say that the global economy of today is global. We have to all work together because it benefits all the economies, because at the end is the objective for all our shareholders, is the people, and sometimes, like in Equatorial Guinea, it's a shareholder owners of the resources. So we do believe that there had to be a global cooperation because we all need together. We need each other. So this is why I do believe that that cooperation is important, It's economics, it's not politics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Should we have another question from the floor?
A comment, one comment on this side, Mr. Maguire. Oh,
go ahead. There you are.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Anita Hankey, head of the Renewable Energy Division at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. First, I want to commend our Honorable Prime Minister for emphasizing the role of clean energy as we transition to a low-carbon economy. And secondly, I was fortunate enough to be at the 5th GECF meeting held here in Trinidad and Tobago in 2005. And like back then, I was very concerned as to the participation by women at the GECF. And more importantly, and by extension, being part of the agenda. If you can probably respond to those comments, thanks.
Gender equity and the participation of women.
Yeah. Well, I guess as president of the GECF, I am supposed to attempt to answer that. The issue is that the GECF doesn't choose its own delegation. The delegation comes from the individual countries. The individual countries have a minister who is on the ministerial meeting. Then they have the executive board, which is somebody, very senior official, usually from the Ministry of Energy of the respective countries, on the board. Those are the two levels of operations. At the GECF Secretariat itself, I think there's a fairly good gender balance at the Secretariat in Doha. The staff has been here, I've seen them. I think there's a greater percentage of women actually on the staff at the GECF than men. But having said that, that's the GECF recruiting policy as an organization. But in terms of the individual representations from the individual members, we obviously have no say in that. We cannot tell a country to put a female or etc. as a minister or a vice minister or a deputy minister. That's at the sole discretion of the individual countries. So I think that's the best way I can attempt to answer a question like that.
Further questions? We just take two more questions. Thank you. Do I see a hand anywhere?
No. Good morning. My name is David Small, Vice President, Nikon Energy.
Where?
Mr. Moderator, I've noted that the session is entitled Dealing with Long-Term Energy Security. Given that the GECF is a group of countries who are exporting gas, we are providing energy security effectively for others. I would like to find out from the panel what work the GECF has done making sure that we, the GECF members, have revenue security, because we provide the security to others. But by the end of the day, we have a role to develop our economies in our respective countries. And what work has the GECF done amongst itself to try to see how we could work together, share experiences of other countries exporting gas, to make sure that the rents that are due to the country from the export of the gas redound back to the citizens. Thank you.
Chairman?
Well, again, let me attempt to answer
you have
that.
To start off.
The GECF's mandate is for countries to own and develop its natural gas resources for the benefits of its citizens. As was clearly articulated by the Prime Minister in his address and by some of the delegates here, including the presentation by His Excellency Alexander Novak, the Minister of Energy of Russia, and in some of my own deliberations, the gas market has changed so fundamentally with time that we are now starting to see major gaps in the value chain. And it's just an evolutionary process. We clearly indicated that initially nobody would build an LNG plant without long-term security, without long-term gas contracts. So because they had investors, they had bankers to repay. Nobody knew how the market would evolve. Nobody would have dared to construct an LNG plant on spot market pricing on short-term contracts. It was just a no-no at that point in time. What happened with the market is that it has changed fundamentally with time, especially because of the technology of new regasification plants, floating LNG, floating storage, and all that type of thing. So what we have happening now is that individual countries, and Trinidad is a classic example. Initially, we were happy with the arrangements because obviously it created a rate of return for the investor, and it did provide substantial economic rent for the country. But as the US market in particular changed, and Henry Hub had no relevance again, and Lake Charles had no relevance again, and the shale gas revolution took place in the United States, we got stranded, so to speak. The traders have come into the scenario and started to add their own distinct flavor, so to speak. And now, for a country like Trinidad, I say so without an apology, that a lot of our LNG goes to Asia, goes to China, goes to Japan, goes to South Korea, but we do not get that Asian price net back to the wellhead in Trinidad and Tobago, and that's the subject of our continued negotiation with the oil companies and with the owners of the Atlantic plant. So that is an ongoing negotiation. So the market is evolving. I don't want to take the position that somebody is wrong and somebody is right. Because when we went into this, we went into it together. And now it has evolved, it has changed, and we just have to work out and define the new relationship we will have in the industry. And then the market will change again in probably 2 decades or a decade again. So we just have to see, as we said in most of the speeches here, you have to adapt to change, seek the interests of the party. Something called the gas value chain. It wasn't a term that was used 20 years ago, you know. It is now in vogue, and everybody speaks about the value chain. The chain is as strong as its weakest link. Nobody should extract undue revenue from the chain at the expense of somebody else, and everybody has a right along the chain to earn some profitability from the chain. The upstreamers has a right. They are investing. They are drilling the wells. They are drilling the wells offshore. They are drilling the wells in the deep water. So they need a fair return for the gas. So they have to sell you the gas at a price. That is understandable. You take the gas, you process it. You take a risk because you don't know what the market will offer for the gas. So there's marketing risk there. When you process your LNG or whatever product you do, there's a market, and then the market has traders, and the market has marketing arrangement. What happens with the big companies is that supposedly some of them don't have arm's length arrangement between their trading arm, their upstream arm, and their midstream arm. And that is where the state, which is us as GECF countries, has to be very, very careful as how we approach this whole scenario. Having said that, it all calls for mature negotiations and understanding of each other's point of view.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think just putting a little brief response to that, I would want to draw reference to the Prime Minister's speech, where in fact he called on the Gas Exporters Countries Forum to look at formulating indexes so that there could be more transparent mechanism for determining gas prices and so on. And that is going to, of course, redound to the benefits of the respective countries and reduce the incidence of transfer pricing and the reliance on what is transfer pricing and what the companies do put on the table. So with that, yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say one thing. I do want to say, especially because I'm here in Trinidad, and this is a great experience for us from Equatorial Guinea. And I say this because I was a member of the delegation when we have the last ministerial meeting here in Trinidad, and it was actually our first year of production of LNG. And the question regarding what has GCA done regarding the cooperations and the benefit, Equatorial Guinea is the best example. When we came here, our LNG plant was built with the aim to export LNG to the US market. But it was through the conversation, especially with the Minister of Trinidad, with the different colleagues here in Port of Spain, that we do realize that there were some clauses that allow the off-taker to deviate, to say that the cargo was leaving Equatorial Guinea, but in reality it was not going to Equatorial Guinea, it was going to the Asian market. So we were able, through that experience, to be able to negotiate at that time with BG, that is now Shell, to make sure that some part of that deviation come to the government. So our only LNG plant, I have to say, that the only one who have the majority benefit has been the off-taker, in this case Shell, and the government of Equatorial Guinea. So, and also remember that in the last meeting, I do believe in the world there was only 17 countries who used to export LNG. And a lot of changes have done, and I think through the different meetings that the minister have, GSA have done, I've been able to explain the importance of gas, because there have been many countries who have the discovery for a long time, but they did not know what to do. If the GSA work have not been done, Mozambique will never be looking for gas. Tanzania wouldn't be the same thing, because they will think that it was not. Our neighbors in Nigeria, like us, we have been discovering gas for many years. But what the operator have been saying, you cannot do anything with the gas. So I think through that cooperation with countries like Trinidad and Tobago and the other funding members, we have changed the entire market to realize that gas is very useful. And I have to say, it has been a benefit to be a member of GSA, to learn from Trinidad and Tobago, to learn from that. And I personally wanted to, one more time, thanks the people of Trinidad, the minister, for allowing us to make a lot of money on only LNG. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a few comments as well?
No, just to really add, I mean, if I may add on it, really, the GECF is a forum, and it's a good forum for us to collaborate, to cooperate with each other. A forum that that controls 70% of the gas reserves and controls over 50% of the LNG market. Definitely there is a lot to learn between ourselves, amongst ourselves rather. At the end of the day, it all boils down to individual member countries as to how you monetize your resource. But then we learn from each other, especially to, like the Honorable Minister from Equatorial Guinea said, I mean, if he had not come here, he wouldn't have known about their versions, and that really helped them to. But then on the whole, that collaboration should not be seen as a threat. We are, of course, charged with the responsibility of providing the long-term energy security, but obviously it's a win-win situation where we expect returns. What you do with your returns and how you harness your resources actually at the end of the day depends on individual members. But as a forum, I see GECF coming out stronger and more membership and then more control and more synergy and then, of course, collaboration and making sure that what we are set for and what we target for as a forum, as countries, a group of countries that produce gas and market gas globally for the energy security of the whole globe is achieved. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Je voudrais dire un dernier mot sur le gaz.
I would just want to really say that in Africa, we have so many inhabitants who do not have any electricity. And in Algeria as well, we will go forward with the production of electricity using gas because there's a potential market for us. We have a second chance as the gas exporting from countries for us to value our gas. It had never been valued in the past. And as we talk about security, this is what we mean, valuing our resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, I think that would bring us to the end of this session. I think we're out of time now. I want, on behalf of all attendees here, to thank Your Excellencies for your insightful and informative presentations and comments in responses to the questions. And on my own behalf, I want to thank the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries and you, Honorable Minister, as well as the Secretariat of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum for the confidence you displayed in me and having me the opportunity to chair this forum. Thank you very much. I think we now have a break.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maguire. Thank you to the panel. We kindly ask that you hold your positions just for a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, there will be a pause for a coffee break of about 15 minutes, and whilst you retire to the entrance to the Port of Spain Ballroom, we'll invite the Honourable Prime Minister to join the ministerial panel on stage for a photo opportunity. And we'll see you back here in 15 minutes' time. Thank you.